Hi guys, so I'm back today. I hope you have a snack. We have a lot to talk about. IVF. That's really all I can say. So just a disclaimer, I do have like a notebook full of all of my notes from my appointments, and it's sitting here in my lap. So I'm going to be looking down at it just to make sure I get everything. Also a disclaimer, my son is riding around in a toy car right above my head. So I'm sorry if you can hear that. There's nothing I can do. So I think I've talked about this before. I think it was in my cost of IUI video. I talked about the fact that I'm really fortunate that my IVF is going to be covered by my insurance because I did so many rounds of IUI. And because of that, my doctor and I talked about it, and we thought it was a good idea for me to go ahead and freeze my embryos. So at this moment in time, today's December 9th of 2020. At this current moment, I am not planning to get pregnant in the next couple months, probably not in the next year. There's a couple different factors that will definitely play a part in that, but at this moment, my number one concern is freezing my embryos. So what we're talking about today is not IVF, it's egg retrieval and embryo freezing prep. I did talk to the doctor at my fertility clinic that I had gone to have my son, and because egg retrieval especially is a much more intense process, and because it is a procedure where you have to be put under, my doctor did not feel comfortable doing that at his clinic with my current BMI. I've said it before, I'll say it again, I am a plus size woman. I'm working on my weight. This isn't about my weight. I'm just putting it out there. But because of that, he did want me to go to one of the hospitals in my area. I am in Massachusetts. You know, we're hospital capital of the world or something. So there's a couple different hospitals around me. My doctor recommended is, I guess I'll say it, it's the Brigham and Women's Hospital. And so I had an appointment, I believe it was the end of August or early September, with one of the doctors there. So right here I have my notes I'm just going to go over. I wrote out a lot of questions. I guess I went into that appointment thinking I've done all the pre-testing. I had been talking to my doctor at the fertility clinic since March of 2020, before COVID started, about the egg retrieval embryo freezing process. And because of COVID, I had been, asked to wait a little bit. We talked again in June, and that's when he told me, let's work on some weight loss this summer. I did work on it. I got put on some meds, again, not about my weight loss, but my BMI is still not low enough for that fertility clinic. So in August, during our meeting, he told me I should look into Brigham and Women's. So it was September that I had the first appointment at Brigham, and I truly believed, because I had done all this testing, I did baseline ultrasounds and blood work and all of that stuff that you do going into IVF, which honestly so far has been very similar to IUI. So if you do have questions about like that initial process, it's kind of all the same stuff I talked about in my IUI story so far. So I sat down with her and I had all these questions. I'm like, what does this cycle look like? When are we going to start? When are you going to submit to insurance? All this kind of stuff. And she kind of pulled me back and she was like, no, we have our own procedures. So you did do all the tests, but you have to, because of my BMI, she did want me to get approval from the maternal fetal medicine at the Brigham for a healthy pregnancy. I again explained to this doctor that I'm not looking for a pregnancy right now. I am looking for embryo freezing. I still had to get the approval. So I talked to her, I don't even have the date, but she kind of laid out what our next steps were. I had to talk to maternal fetal medicine. I had to talk to the genetics counselor because I am going to be doing testing on my eggs. So I will get into that. And I also had to meet with the social worker to get approval. And I think I talked about in my IUI video, I don't really get the point of social worker approval, but it's there. So during my appointment with her, this doctor at the Brigham, she's really nice. She's, you know, there were times that I definitely felt like she was slowing down this process for me, but I guess that's just their procedure and the fact that, you know, I've been doing this at 2 hospitals this year, or 2 facilities this year. One of the coolest, like most useful things that she gave me during our first meeting was kind of a by the numbers rate of how many embryos we will most likely get. And I think I'm going to talk about it now, and then I'll kind of compare it after I do the egg retrieval and see how many embryos we get. But she said to take like your follicle count. So when I have my day 3 ultrasounds done, I always have over 20 follicles. My average is about 23. So she said, let's take that number, 23. 23 follicles. And out of that 23, 75 to 80%, she said, let's say 80 because I'm young. About 80% of those are going to be mature when we do the egg retrieval. So 23, 80% are going to be mature. Of those 80%, 75 of them are most likely going to fertilize, somewhere around there. And she said that that number is higher than some people's because we will be doing ICSI, and I will put what that means right here. And we will be doing that with my donor sperm vial. So then from there, out of the 75% that fertilized, about 40% of those are going to reach day 5. So we freeze at day 5 or we test at day 5. So in my case, we're going to be testing at day 5 and then freezing them after that point. Or I guess really, I'll get into it, but really they take the sample on day 5 and then they freeze it immediately and then they test the sample. Anyway, so out of that 40% that make it to day 5, 60% of those are going to be good quality embryo babies, whatever you call that, that I can get pregnant with. So she said, doing all that math, we should get about 5 embryos. With IVF, the chances of success at each round are somewhere around 60%. So I will not end up with 5 more kids. It's probably like 2 or 3, which I'm okay with. I really wanted, I want 3 kids, 3 or 4. So I'm okay with that number. Just a side note, getting a little deep, I definitely feel weird talking about that because, you know, I'm saying there are 5 embryos, and no matter what your view is on, you know, when life starts and pro-life, pro-choice, I don't want to get into that. To me, as a mother and as someone who, you know, I waited and waited and waited to hear that I was pregnant with, you know, a 4-week-old tiny embryo. And to me, that is a baby, that is a life. That's just my personal opinion. But to know that I'm kind of talking nonchalantly about the fact that there's going to be 5 of them, and I'm probably only going to end up giving birth to 2 or 3. It feels real weird. It's a weird thing to think about, the fact that I'm basically signing up to do all of this to most likely not give birth to all of the children that I produce. So that's a really weird thing that I've been wrapping my head around. Yeah, just weird. Whew, deep. Sorry. So after I did have that meeting with her, she laid out some of the costs for me. I am going to do a separate video after all of my costs are done, and I'm going to talk about my cost of embryo freezing, egg retrieval / embryo freezing. So watch out for that. Probably January. Depends on when the egg retrieval is. But the next step after meeting with that doctor was, oh yeah, like I said, I had to meet with maternal fetal medicine. The funny thing was, so in my my pregnancy story, I talked about the fact that I was a higher risk pregnancy and that I did do monthly ultrasounds at maternal fetal medicine. It was not at the Brigham. I gave birth to my son at a different hospital, but the maternal fetal medicine doctor that I met with for clearance works at the Brigham and at my hospital, and she saw me for all of my ultrasounds with my son. So our conversation was very short, and she signed me off. She was like, oh yeah, like, your pregnancy was super easy. I read your chart. The birth was super easy. And I'm not going to tell you when or when not to have kids. And like you're telling me right now, you're not doing this anytime soon anyway. So our conversation was like 15 minutes, and she got to meet my son via Zoom. So he sat here and he talked to her too. It was very cute. So after the maternal fetal medicine meeting, I did have what's called a PGTA testing meeting with the genetics department. So PGTA testing, basically, if you've ever been pregnant or you know about this, when you are, I think it's 10 weeks pregnant, that's when I did it with my son, you can have blood work done, and it tells you like the baby's gender, it tells you any abnormalities like that, chromosomal diseases. So PGTA testing is kind of like that on the embryo. It tells you some basic things about the baby, and what the genetic specialist explained to me, it also kind of weeds out which embryos probably would not have, she didn't say probably, she said the embryos that would not have made it anyway, the ones that would have miscarried because there was a genetic abnormality. So it's taking out the ones that would have been chemical pregnancies, just from the sheer fact that they were not normal chromosomally. And that's done by taking like 5 to 10 placental cells. So I guess when the embryo is like there, part of it is already like ready to be placental cells and part of it's already ready to be baby cells, and they only take from the placental one, so it doesn't harm the baby at all, the embryo. And they take like 5 to 10 of those cells and they run them, and they give them a grade of E, which is excellent, A, which is abnormal, or M, which is mosaic or mixed. So a mosaic is a mixture of cells that are excellent and abnormal, and those are tend to be qualified as abnormal because you don't know if the abnormality is just in the placenta or if that's also in the baby. So they grade them based on like that, the E and A and M, and they also grade them based on what's called morphology, which is their dividing rate and who has the healthiest chance. And I guess how she explained it is they are going to grade them like who's the number one, like who's most likely going to result in a baby, all the way down to this one's iffy, and however many there are in between. So that's, for me, I think that was a peace of mind, because I know that I'm putting in, you know, my strongest, best chance. I know that there are, you know, moral questions to that. Definitely feel free to have your opinion, but I don't want to be judged for it, because this is what I'm going to do. I have already put the deposit down on it. There's a fee. There's one fee for it, and then per embryo you pay another fee. But again, I'll talk about that in the cost video. So much to talk about. So then I also talked to the social worker. It took me over a week to get in touch with the social worker. She was definitely the longest process for me. And she basically just asked me about my life and, you know, my son and why I'm doing this, you know, the usual stuff. And she was happy enough with my answers, so moving forward. Then I finally had my last meeting with my doctor, and at that meeting she told me she was going to submit to my insurance to get approval, which I knew was going to be pretty quick because my fertility clinic had already submitted it to insurance, so I had already been approved there. So it was just kind of moving the approval. But at that point, I was actually, this is a little TMI, I was actually in the middle of my longest cycle, like period cycle, since my son was born. As someone with PCOS, my cycles are all over the place. But over the summer, I had like 10-day long cycles. Like I got 3 periods in the month of July, which sucked. But this cycle, I got a period on October 19th, and I didn't get another one again until November 28th. So it was well over a month. And I had talked to her like somewhere around November 19th, somewhere in there. And, you know, I said to her, what happens if my period comes before the insurance approval? And she said, well, then you give my office a call and we'll put you on birth control. So that is actually what happened. Now we're getting into like present day stuff, because my period came on Saturday, November 28th. By the way, the day of my son's birthday party, super inconvenient. But yeah, so it came that day. I sent her office a message and I was like, hey, let's do this. And I actually got insurance approval on, I want to say it was the 1st, December 1st. They did put me on birth control starting on November 30th. And I've been on APRI, birth control, since the 30th. Today's the 10th. Today's the 9th. I'm sorry. December 9th. And last night was my last dose. Fun fact though, I did want to throw this in, and I guess now's a good time. I've never been on birth control before. Again, that might be TMI. But God, they tell you that birth control can be used to like clear acne. I have more acne now on birth control than I have since before I was pregnant. I had really bad skin before I was pregnant. That was part of my PCOS. My pregnancy cleared up my skin amazing. And in the year my son has been alive, I have not gotten bad acne again. And like, I don't want to get too close, but like I have breakouts on my chin and my neck and my face, a few on my nose. Thank God for makeup. But yeah, like birth control gave me acne. What the hell? So I had talked to the nurse on December 2nd. She told me I was approved. She told me, you know, you're going to be on the birth control for a few more days while we figure everything out. So during that call, she told me what my protocol is. I'm going to talk about my protocol in another video, probably when I start the protocol. So that's going to be this Saturday, the 12th. So I will talk about that. But basically she's like, we're going to start you on this protocol as soon as we do your baseline after you stop the pill. So I stopped the pill last night, which was the 8th. I have to wait 4 days. So that's Saturday. On Saturday morning at 6:30 in the morning, I get to drive 45 minutes into the city of Boston and have an internal ultrasound at 6:30 a.m. and some blood work. And then they're going to call me with the results. She said most likely that day they're going to put me on the first dose of my injections. It's 2 injections a day, every day. So I did have to have medication delivered last week. My freezer is full of them. My fridge, not freezer, don't put them in the freezer. So she said we will start the protocol, and then my next monitoring, she wasn't sure if it would be blood and ultrasound or just one. So my next monitoring will be next Thursday, the 17th, and I will have been on meds, you know, every day from the 12th to the 17th, and we'll work from there. She said by the 17th, I do have to have my donor in my possession, which is really weird because this hospital does not hold your donor for you. My fertility clinic did. So I would call the cryobank and I would be like, hey, ship him there, basically. And I would pay the shipping fee, be delivered. He'd be waiting for me when I got there. This time I get to bring him with me. So he has to be here by the 17th, and I have to bring him with me to the egg retrieval. It's very weird. It's a very weird thing. I also had to have a COVID test because we are living in a COVID world. So I did get that done. I also had a meeting with anesthesia because obviously egg retrieval, I'll be going under anesthesia, and they wanted me to get clearance from them. So that's kind of where we're at. I've done all this kind of background stuff, and now I'm off all meds as of today. I will, when I start my protocol, I'm going to be filming that. That might be a little more vloggy. I'm not sure. If it is, be prepared for my face without makeup, because I don't wear makeup every day. And I don't know if it's going to be vloggy or sit down like this. I haven't decided. But I will talk more about my reactions to the meds, what the med process looks like, what my dosing is, I guess. And yeah, it's getting real, guys. I'm pretty sure we're going to be doing the egg retrieval before the end of this month. So, because today's the 9th. And this is a 31-day month. So yeah, most likely I will be doing all the egg retrieval before the end of this month, and probably the embryo freezing. If I had to guess, I would say that's probably what we're looking at. So it's it's really exciting, but it's crazy to think we're this far. I've come this far. Ooh. Okay. Well, I will talk to you guys soon. I will catch you up on all this craziness. Bye.